This is 88.7 FM WHCL out of Clinton, New York. I'm Kate, and I'm a narcoleptic car rider.
And I'm Rachel, and I would very much like to wed Winona Ryder, my manic pixie dream girl.
And you're listening to Liberal Arts and Crafts.
Sup, Kate.
Sup, Rachel.
See how I started that differently than I usually do?
I did. It was impressive.
I'm trying to
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to because I'm trying to surprise you. I'm trying to keep our relationship spicy and interesting because I feel like we're a couple that's been married for a very long time. You know, we come into this room every week.
Couple of years, approximately.
A couple years, yes. Yeah. So I appreciate that I'm doing extra things for you.
Was your weekend equally spicy?
My weekend was pretty spicy, actually,
Really?
which is surprising because I've been such a recluse this semester. But this past weekend, I had a super fun casual hang on Friday. And then on Saturday, I talk a little bit about this more later in the episode, but I had a very, festivity and, fall-filled day with all of our 306 friends in my suite. And it's very recharging.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. What about you?
I had a adventure-filled weekend as well, which I'm also going to be talking about later in the episode, so I don't want to give anything away. But I went to Chestertown, New York on a whim on Friday night, randomly decided to drive 2.5 hours out there and then 2.5 hours back in the morning. And that was a huge adventure in and of itself, but I won't spoil it right now.
Okay.
Well, do you want to start with your light bulb this week?
Sure, I'll start with mine. So I try to keep my light bulbs pretty general because they're supposed to be an idea that we found compelling. So mine was very broad this week, and it is just the concept of perspective.
Okay.
Which is something that's very difficult for me to get into because I, like many other people, can be self-centered because that's just human nature. And I feel like a lot of my problems and experiences are A, more important and severe than everyone else's, and B, no one else has been through the same thing.
Yeah,
but in reality,
I feel that way all the time.
Yeah. So, everyone feels the same way, but that doesn't make it any easier to accept that and move past it. But I just had this intense acceptance of the fact that we are all in the same boat. Everyone's heard that phrase before, but we are literally just all in the same boat. And it's not even some people are captaining the boat. No, we are all in the back. This is the Titanic, and we're all the lower class crew, and water's coming in, and we are all in this boat, and it's sinking. This is a metaphor for senior year, in case you haven't caught on. But it's very difficult at a school where so many people are such wholesome, intelligent, wonderful, emotional beings, because that's just the kind of people that Hamilton likes to attract to this campus. And it's very hard when you're surrounded by such incredible people to not compare yourselves to them so intensely and think, oh, this image that they're putting off right now of success and just self-assurance is 100% true, and they have more than I do, and they will succeed more than I am and more than I will.
Yeah.
So I just had this moment on Thursday, I think, where I had a rotten week, but I came home and I made myself a cup of salted caramel hot cocoa, and I got in my comfy clothes, and I put some lavender spray all around me, and I was journaling. Bon Iver was playing in the background, and I cupped my hands very slowly around this warm mug, and I this is really embarrassing. I tears welled up in my eyes because I was just we're all going through such crap right now, but the feeling of my hands around this mug is everything to me right now. And I was just brought really intensely into that moment because I finally let go and was it's okay, I'm not going to think about that. Everyone's suffering. I'm just going to cup this mug and I'm going to...
Everyone's suffering.
Literally everyone's suffering. I was I'm going to cup this mug and I'm going to drink it before it gets cold because usually I forget about it, but I'm going to pay attention to it and I'm going to enjoy it. So I had a very midlife, old grandma-y type, moment of realization, just drinking my hot drink this Thursday.
I like how you said that you were going to drink it before it gets cold. I feel like I typically try to have experiences like that. They're kind of what what did you said in an earlier podcast that you were a pseudo yogi.
Oh my gosh, because I am. I'm so fake.
Well, there we go. I try to pseudo relax. I'll be like, oh, if I make myself a cup of tea, like this is self-care. This is like relaxing.
Right.
And then I'll make the cup of tea and I'll leave it on the counter and I'll freak out and do all this other stuff and completely forget that it's there. And it's not self-care if you were just doing stuff to pretend it's self-care.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Pseudo-care.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah. So that was my light bulb for this week, was just keep perspective in mind whenever you can, because that is what's true instead of what you see all around you. Because much like social media, even in real life, the things that we see people putting off is such a fragment of what they're going through.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to see that when you're not like talking to them about it, but I'm trying to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a really good point. My light bulb this week is pretty meta. It's actually about our entire podcast as a whole. So I was in my literary theory class this week, and we were talking about an article on ideology. And it was about how we were discussing what it is like to input a ton of information and output like creativity. And basically our class was discussing in our modern age if we really are we passive intakers of things or are we active creators, which is prioritized more? And pretty much all of the class was saying that we are passive. We go on the internet and we absorb information. All we do is read things, but we hardly produce things. And if we do produce things, it's just regurgitating things. Our entire existence is composed of just passively receiving forms of entertainment and forms of media. And anyways, so our class is discussing this, and I am freaking out in my chair. I was like bouncing up and down because that is exactly why we started liberal arts and crafts, is because, at least for me, this summer, I've talked about this, I think, on the first episode. I had this experience this summer of feeling like all I was doing was reading Twitter and reading Facebook and reading scientific journals and articles online. And I just felt this passive, immobile recipient of information, and it was really overwhelming. I got really tired of looking at my phone because I felt like all I did was read what other people did and I wasn't doing anything myself. So I don't know, this discussion was really interesting because it so clearly referenced what I think the goal of this show is we take things in during the week. I passively received that lit theory discussion, and now you turn it into something. You turn it into a conversation or a creative project or a podcast.
Yes, I was so excited when you texted me this.
Yeah.
And it always makes me happy when the podcast is referenced outside of this room where we record it.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, so listeners, if you haven't listened to our pilot episode, during the first 20 minutes or so, we kind of, much like a fledgling NGO, we kind of talk about like our mission statement, which is like Kate just gracefully recapped, the relationship between the input and output of information and content. And I think we're doing a good job so far.
Yeah. Sometimes I lose our central message. I kind of go through the motions of our different segments, but it's important to think about what are you taking in and what are you putting out.
Yeah. So what came of that? Did you end up talking about the podcast in your class, or did he give it a listen?
I actually was trying to find a way to bring up the podcast in class, but didn't know how to do it besides making a shameless plug. This is unrelated to the discussion, but check out WHCL at noon on Fridays. So instead, after class, I went up to my professor and I was like, yo, this discussion is so relevant. And I told my professor to take a listen. So who knows if he will. If he does, shout out to Professor Whitus. But if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, if you do, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Rachel, have you heard the news?
You're going to have to be more specific, Kate.
The music news. Is that specific?
Is this about Joanne?
This is about Joanne.
I have not listened to it.
It is great. Lady Gaga is my girl, my bae. I have been a diehard Lady Gaga fan for a few years now. A few being approximately 10 plus years. However long Lady Gaga's been in the business, I have been her fan. I've been to 2 concerts, both of which were life-changing. But all this aside, Lady Gaga's music thus far has been really really catchy pop music, but it's usually very different. The reason I like her so much as opposed to Bon Iver, who has now, I've changed my mind about Bon Iver, but is because all of her songs sound different to me. And not everyone will agree with me on this, but I just feel like when I listen to her album, I'm constantly surprised. And so, anyways, recently, this month, she came out with a new album called Joanne, and it is shockingly different than any album she has ever produced. It is going back to her roots, and it's still a pop album, but it's very folky and country, and there's less, like, there's still a beat, but it's less auto-tuned, not auto-tuned, like interesting sounds, creative synthesizing of music. It's really relatable, like folky, personal anecdotes about her life. I like it. I do like the pop Lady Gaga, I think, a little bit more. But one of her songs I particularly liked, and it's called Dancing in Circles. And it's probably the most poppy song on the album that I could find, which is probably why I was drawn to it. But I would like our listeners to take a listen to and check out this new version of Lady Gaga, who I like. I like this new version just as much as I like the old version.
First off, I would like to say I'm very proud that you have a jam this week. I'm very proud of you.
I do have a jam this week, and I genuinely found that this week as well.
I know, and I think that's great. We're constantly moving upwards here on Liberal Arts and Crafts. My jam is in the same vein. It's also very poppy. I'm kind of ashamed of my jam. Like your jam from last week with Zayn.
Pillow Talk.
It is a good song, though.
It is.
Hashtag Pillow Talk.
I know.
Yeah, I did listen to it a few times when I didn't need to. So there you go.
This is so fun.
So my jam is Still Falling for You by Ellie Goulding, and this is straight up off of the soundtrack for the new Bridget Jones movie. Bridget Jones's Baby. I have not watched the first Bridget Jones. I also have not watched the second one. I think I found this song because I saw a commercial for the movie, heard it in the background, was like, oh yeah, Shazammed it, and then listened to it on my own. Which is coincidentally what happened a few months back for another poppy song I fell in love with, Fire Meet Gasoline by Sia. Which I also found because it was like the background music to a movie trailer that was some rom-com, like thunder and lightning, like just romance drama. So anyway, I've been listening to Still Falling for You on repeat, and pop music gets such a bad rap, but it's so good.
I know. I feel that way too. When I was in like high school and grade school and would say that I loved Lady Gaga, everyone thought it was really lame because it was like the mainstream artist.
No, but like Lady Gaga has an incredible voice. Was she
so
Juilliard
talented.
trained? Is that a
I'm
fact
pretty
I'm
sure
making up?
she was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes my memory just makes things
Listeners, fact check us at liberalartsandcrafts@gmail.com.
libartsandcrafts@gmail.com.
Libarts. Don't send it to that other email I just made up.
Yeah, but she does have an incredible voice, and so does Ellie Goulding, TBH. So everyone should give this a listen and try to reserve their judgment, because it's pretty swell. I have good news for you, Kate.
What, Rachel?
You know how you're the one who's breaking all the rules on this podcast?
Yes. Shut up.
I'm now the one who's going to break a rule.
Ooh.
I don't have one
That's
vignette.
2 strikes, yeah.
Yeah, 2 strikes for me. What was my first one? What did I do?
Well, you didn't have a scribble.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm at least 3 strikes, but at least you have 2 now.
I am keeping you on this show out of the goodness of my heart.
You are.
But, so my vignette is breaking the rules because it's not one thing, it's actually 3 things, because I can't contain myself. So my vignette was basically everything that happened on Saturday, from mid-afternoon on Saturday until probably 1 a.m. on Sunday, because I could not separate how wonderful these 3 different events were, but they're also all related. So Saturday afternoon, my suite mates and I, Daphne and Emily, who I consider my suite mate, even though she graduated.
Fair.
Because she's one of the Levitt Fellows, and she lives in Clinton now because she started a nonprofit in Utica. Shameless plug for Emily's nonprofit. She started an urban gardening nonprofit titled Utica Greens. Check her out on Facebook and see if you can volunteer for her public gardens in Utica.
Ooh.
She's looking for help.
Hashtag garden.
And she is amazing. So Anyway, so I went with her and Daphne to North Star Orchards to go pumpkin picking, meaning we didn't go pick pumpkins. We picked them out from inside of the North Star building.
That's fair.
But we got pumpkins for us. We got a pumpkin for Meg. And we got a pumpkin for Cedar, who couldn't come because she was running a 5K. And I can't do that. She asked Daphne and me, she was like, hey, would you guys like to run the 5K with me tomorrow? And we were like, no, thanks. So we got all these pumpkins and we came back and we had this huge pumpkin carving fest and everything turned out really beautiful and it reminded me of home because my mom is a very avid pumpkin carver. She's a very creative person. Shout out to Sharon. I know you're listening.
So cute.
This is going to be awkward if you're not. But shout out to Mom. So that was the first part of the trilogy, was the pumpkin carving. We listened to some great jams, we had some food, and we just carved the crap out of these pumpkins. And you know that feeling when you're hands deep in a pumpkin and you're just pulling out all this pulp and you just feel like you're 5 years old again? It was incredible. It was good.
I have a full pumpkin sitting in my room and all the tools sitting next to it, and I have not carved it.
Oh my gosh, Halloween is still tomorrow.
I know. I could still make it happen.
It could still happen. So for listeners who are confused, as a reminder, we do record this the Saturday or Sunday.
Oh yeah, this will be long gone by the time you hear this.
So we'll update you next week on if Kate carved the pumpkin or not, but I highly recommend. Just, it feels so good. So that was the first part of the trilogy. The second part of the trilogy was later that night, me and Cedar and Emily and Daphne were all kind of having like a mini party in our suite, and we decided to play Truth or Dare because we're 12. And we did a few dares, like eat this pumpkin seed, lick my shoe, and then we got a little bored. And I asked someone a truth question, I think, and I asked them to name their absolute favorite quality about everyone else in the room and then also about themselves.
Oh.
Which was quite fun. And then we liked it so much that the remaining 3 people did the same thing. So we ended up doing it like 12 times.
Wow.
Or 16 times, I think that's what the math is. But it was really lovely, and it was just such a love fest, and it made me so, like, warm inside.
Oh.
And my favorite part was seeing people coming up with their favorite things about themselves, because that's a difficult thing to talk about.
Yeah, really.
Because it feels kind of, like, narcissistic, like, oh, my favorite thing about myself is blah.
Yeah.
But I think there's something I read about when people are trying to describe their favorite physical features, they overwhelmingly say eyes because they're safe. You know? Like, no one ever says, like, I love my hips, or, like, I love my shoulders, or my chest, or whatever.
Yeah.
They always say eyes.
Yeah.
Because that's, like, the safe option.
Well, it's so benign.
I know.
And almost everyone has great eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really warm and fuzzy. And then the last part of the trilogy of this Saturday afternoon cheat fest that I'm doing is... we went back to my double, and it was me and Cedar and Daphne, and then Meg came over later, and we were just so uninhibited because we were on such a friendship high because we saw you at the Bones party too, and it was like a little like 306 fest.
Oh.
Then we just came back and just talked for a while, and just like, you know, when you're with someone you feel so intensely comfortable with, and you just, all your filters are gone and all your barriers are gone, and you can just kind of like, you know when you, like, unbuckle your pants at the end of a long day? Mm-hmm. It felt like that, but for my brain. I was like,
ooh, I like that. I like that metaphor.
So it was just, so much friendship happened that day. And whew, I might have just talked for, like, 20 minutes. I love my friends. But it was so wonderful. And I'm, like, so behind in my homework now, but it doesn't even matter.
Oh, it's definitely worth it.
So what was your vignette?
My vignette was pretty ridiculous. So this was my Friday night adventure at about 4 o'clock. Greg notified me that his oldest sister was having a haunted house in Chestertown, where she lives, which is 2.5 hours away. And all of his family was going to be there, and all of their family friends, and it would be like a huge bash. And I just was like, you know what? I don't have any other plans for Friday night. Why not? And so we got in the car at 7 p.m. and drove for 2.5 hours, or like, we got there at like 10, I think. It took 3 hours actually. So we got there and the whole party was over, which was a little sad, but his siblings were all there still, and they were just chatting around the fireplace. And so it was still really nice to get to hang out with them. But this house it had the best decorations I have ever seen for a haunted house ever. So Greg's oldest sister, Keely, shout out to Keely, just got married in August.
Ooh, congrats, Keely.
And She is just like the most unbelievable, like, how do I describe this? She's so good with crafts and working with her hands, but about anything. So she can do botany, all sorts of botany. She does all of these creative art projects, like any project you can think of, from like sculpting to like paper crafts to she's an amazing cook, like all these things with her hands. And so this party was like every surface of this house was covered in handmade Halloween things. Everything. It was unreal. I wish that I could transport visual images through this microphone. I'll have to describe them. But she had like, even the food was a piece of art. She made these cupcakes that all of them had different designs on them. One had like this series of pretzels sticking out of the top, and she had drizzled chocolate over them to make it look like a spider web. Mm-hmm. And she had made out of like marzipan that she'd turned pink, had made little like Viking horns on some of the cupcakes, like out of just pure marzipan. Oh my gosh. So, all right. Food aside was amazing, but I'm in this house feeling overwhelmed. Their family is like this big crazy family who are just so cool. And anyways, absorbing all of this. And then Greg goes, oh, dude, let's go outside and use the potato gun. And I was like, what? It's like 11:30 at night, pitch black outside, and Keely's new husband, Miko, is outside with this potato gun. So we go down the front porch, and I'm picturing a potato gun to be, you know, the size of like a BB gun, something kind of small, and you shoot little chunks of potato out of it. That's kind of what I'm picturing. This was a 5-foot-long tube that shoots whole potatoes, full potatoes. And Miko is standing there with this thing aimed off the side of the porch, and he's spraying all of this hairspray into the end of it. And I was like, what is all the hairspray for? Like, what are you doing it? And he's like, fuel. And then, like, stuffs a potato in. And I'm like, what? And he goes, do you want to try? And he screws on this cap at the end. And he says, hold this. I have to hold it with both full arms, right? It's extending off the side of the porch. And he's like, all you have to do is click this button on the top. It's a little tiny button the size of my thumb. So I press down on the button, and there is a recoil because the hairspray acts as like gunpowder, basically. And this potato shot out of the gun so fast that, one, you could barely see it because it was dark, completely pitch black outside. It shoots out at like who knows how many miles per hour. Definitely would have killed someone if someone was in the vicinity. But also, the potato went so fast that it came out as bright orange. The potato was on fire when it left. What? It was insane. And so, anyways, I shoot this, and my body, like, flies backwards a little bit. And so I just wanted to tell this vignette because this is going into my description of Greg's family being like a reality TV show in the best way possible.
Wait. I have so many questions, so many follow-up questions. One, why do they have the potato gun? Is it just for fun?
It's just for fun.
Do they like try to shoot trees or like
they shoot it at trees? No, they don't aim it at animals. They just like shooting at trees.
Okay.
Just chucking potatoes. And their house is, it's like a cabin in the middle of like some wooded area in Chestertown. Okay. It's not like a big metropolis or something.
There's not like possibly small children like running around in the woods.
No,
they could
it's like
shoot
just
with
their
potatoes.
House and like a bunch of trees.
Okay. Second follow-up question. When the potato makes impact, is it like mashed potatoes? Does it explode? Like,
I think it explodes. It's like on fire. The potato is moving so fast. I couldn't see it because it was dark out. But I can't handle this family. It is so funny. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So I fired a potato gun as if it were a real gun this weekend. That is my vignette.
I again, we should just end the show here. This is like last week's episode when you did your pale blue dot reading. Like, stop having all these great one-liners.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's shout out to Greg and your family. That's like incomprehensible. I just can't. It's time for crafts.
That was our Stranger Things reenactment. I'm assuming everyone got that reference.
It's got to be good because it's got to be fresh in your mind because you just watched the finale last night, right?
I watched all but the last 15 minutes of the finale.
Which is a sin, first of all.
Well, we had to because we were waiting on our friend Meg to come join us. Everyone should watch Stranger Things.
It's also going to make you cry. I cried harder watching the Stranger Things finale than I did when I saw the Titanic for the first time, which was a freaking waterfall.
Oh my gosh. Hashtag Winona Ryder.
Oh my gosh. Hashtag Winona. So before we continue, this is a very Winona Ryder themed episode, but this is very fitting because my Halloween costume last night was Joyce Byers from Stranger Things, who is played by Winona Ryder, who is everything to me. So I had like the maroon shirt and like the vintage army jacket going on. I had some corduroys. I made my hair super messy. And I had a little sign around my neck that said, "Have you seen my son?" in capital letters. Will. So I just ran around all night going, Will, have you seen my son? And like people would like Brian Burns came up to me in Bristol and was like, "Are you Joyce Byers?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Nice. I love when people get your Halloween costume right off the bat.
Yeah. So, very fitting. Anyway, we have Scribbles this week, both of us. Cue, like, audience clapping, congratulatory track.
Applause.
Woo! My Scribble is all about my journal. So, as I am a fake yogi, which Kate has brought up, I'm also a fake journaler. Not as intensely, but I'm one of those people that likes to talk about how they journal, but I don't do it all the time. I go through phases. I'll journal very intensely, and then I won't journal for a while. But I'm pretty okay with that. But I've been so close to finishing my journal for so long.
Oh,
I had 3 pages left. So this actually, when I was talking about my cupping my hot mug moment, that's when I finished my journal. I sat down and I wrote my last entry, and I finished it.
Oh,
So
that's such a good feeling.
Done, yes. And I had been writing in this journal since the very end of freshman year.
Whoa.
Yes, I think one of my first entries was when I was in Adam Everett's car coming home to Connecticut because he lives like half an hour from me in Connecticut. And I was writing down like, I think Adam and his dad are talking in German. I don't know what they're saying. I'm in the back seat. Like, my handwriting is sloppy. But I finished it. And this new thing that I've been doing every time I finish a journal, and by every time I mean 2 times in total because I've only done it twice, is I got this from the internet, and I think it's really cute. At the end of your journal, you leave like 1 page front and back blank, and you write inventory on top. And you put down everything that's contained in that journal in there. So this can be very interesting for people like me who don't just write plain old journal entries. Like, I have a lot of weird stuff in my journal. So I asked Kate to see if she could get my journal from my room before we came to record this, but my room was locked. However, I remember most of what I wrote down for my inventory. So I wrote it down before this podcast, and I'm going to read it to you all because I am a nosy person, and I love when people let me read their writing. So I hope that you will enjoy this little snippet into my personal creative life. So here we go. Inventory of this journal, which is a black ruled moleskin. About 55 journal entries, 73 post-its, 5 poems written by me, 6 poems written by actual poets, 1 poem written for me by a friend, 10 song lyrics, all in cursive, because whenever I write in cursive, it's just for song lyrics. 1 letter to me from another person, shout out to Courtney. 1 letter from me to myself. 2 recordings of the date of the first snow of the year. 1 pressed flower. 2 Spanish recipes handwritten by my host sister, Noemi. 1 Madrilenian leaf. 2 Christmas lists, both for myself. 4 writer's block entries. 2 streams of consciousness. 3 sketches that I drew. 1 sketch a friend drew for me, shout out to Marissa. 2 handprints using the pigment on the walls of the Palacio de Pena in Lisbon. Well, it's west of Lisbon, it's in Sintra. 1 photograph, and 1 inventory of this journal.
That was beautiful. That makes me want to start a journal so I can make an inventory.
It's really fun. It's fun to just flip through and like categorize everything and count them all. So I definitely missed a few, but that's the gist of it. So I was really excited that I finished this, and like you, Kate, I'm a very sentimental person, and I love going back and flipping through my old writings and my old archives, and I feel like I'm on an archaeological dig of my former self, and it's very exciting. So this was a lot of fun for me. So that's how I spent my Thursday night.
That's awesome.
Yes, I'm very proud of myself.
I tried to reread. I've only journaled once. I only journaled when I was abroad. And when I did that, I journaled almost every single day, which was crazy because I never do that. But I thought that I could read it on the flight home because it's like a 16-hour flight home from India. So I was like, oh, I'll just reread my whole journal start to finish because I filled the entire book in the semester, which was crazy for me. And I read about 3 pages and I was like, there is no way I am rereading this because it was too much sentimental blah, and I don't know, there were too many feelings for me to reread it. But hopefully, or maybe, was your journal that emotional roller coaster, or was it just like your daily life?
It's interesting that you ask me about this because my freshman year journal, it was not a moleskin, it was a bit wider ruled, so I finished it quite quickly. I finished it midway through spring semester, but that was an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
I was going through a lot of personal things freshman year, so reading that, it's just very intense and very dark and very raw. And it was kind of obsessive in a way. Like a lot of times when you write, it can help you sort out your thoughts and kind of get collected. But for me, it did that, but at times it kind of fed my like personal struggles. But anyway. So for this new journal, I wrote, actually one of my first entries for this journal was, I'm going to try to still keep it personal because that's the objective, but it's going to be less of a maladaptive crutch. So it was personal, but it was less like almost painful to read, like kind of dark and like
I
twisty.
like that.
Yeah. So
Maybe that comes with having experience from journaling too.
Yes, maybe I'm not fake after all.
Not pseudo.
Listeners, write into us. Do you think I'm fake? Let me know.
Well, my scribble was a much, much shorter scribble, but since you did a tweet one week, I think this counts. I have been putting off thinking about careers and post-grad because high, shrill scream, it scares me. And so I keep thinking that if I just ignore it, that is the best solution. And I have some really simple things I could do to just learn more about careers that I haven't done. But on, what day was it? On Friday. Well, actually, okay, side note. I have this tendency that when I'm going to work out, I'm extremely productive because I do every single thing possible to procrastinate working out. So I was like, I'll work out at 1 o'clock. And then I spent the entire time leading up to it doing like all sorts of stuff to just push back the time when I would actually work out. And in doing so, I did one of the things that's been on my to-do list for a while, which was send a Facebook message to a friend that graduated recently, Peter Bresnan, shout out to Peter, who is currently working at Gimlet in New York City and is doing podcasting. His entire career is podcasting. And I really wanted to reach out to him, but it just seemed so much work, even though the message would be like 3 sentences long. And so I did my scribble. I wrote Peter a message during my procrastination period, and he immediately responded, and we actually set up a phone call for the next day. And I talked to him for like an hour on the phone about his job and all of that stuff. So this goes back to a few weeks ago where I said that I couldn't even make myself like write a letter to my mom because it seemed like this huge duty. Sometimes I feel like writing a letter or a message to people is like this huge task, and it's so not. It's so small. And so this was a quick reminder that something so simple as like a few sentences, it takes 30 seconds, and it can lead to a really great conversation.
Wow. First of all, that's great. But second of all, we still seem to be so perplexed about why writing things is so hard when it's outside of the classroom. What's up with that?
No, I never want to, I guess. I never have a craving to write. Maybe that's it.
Again, listeners, write to us if you know why this is so difficult.
Find it within you to write an email.
Yes.
You can do it.
Wow, that's so meta. Yeah, literally just write to us and just answer all of our questions as we
Please, we have
here
no idea.
In the studio.
We're just crawling through the muck. Answer our questions.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I'm glad you had a satisfying talk with him.
Rachel, I'm going to start with my experiment this week. but I think we might have pretty similar experiments based off of what our little spreadsheet says.
Wait, we actually do. Okay, you first.
Mine is going to be brief because I haven't thought this through very much, but my experiment this week was spontaneity, case in point, going to Chestertown on a whim 2.5 hours away. I'm a very, very organized person to the point where I think it detracts from some things in my life. For instance, the last few years, I kind of obsessively plan my meals with other people. I'll be like, I'll get dinner with this person, then lunch with this person, and then dinner with this person. And I'll plan all of it so far in advance that in the spur of the moment, I can't find someone and just be like, yo, let's get a meal. And I feel like recently, actually the last month or so, I've been planning so much less of my schedule. I've been planning, of course, things that I have to, but meals or my plans on the weekend, I don't write in a week in advance. And it's been really nice. And it's allowed for me to do things like just go up to Chestertown for a night or to get a meal with whoever I want to that I run into before I go to the dining hall. So my experiment has been trying to add some more spontaneity into my life.
Ooh, I like the way you said that. It was spontaneous.
Spassy.
Ooh. That's actually Meg, who you also know, because we both know Meg, has talked a lot to me about planning meals with people and how it's great when you're kind of anxious about that because you don't want to end up like alone that night because you didn't think ahead, but also whenever somebody asks you on the fly, like, oh my gosh, you want to grab dinner like tonight or tomorrow? And you're just booked 4 days in advance.
It's kind of awkward.
It is kind of awkward. Yeah. So I relate to that. I've been doing a little bit of that this semester too. My experiment is similar. It's in the same vein, but I think it's a bit different. I wrote down just do it, which is ironic because I own no Nike apparel. Not at all. I'm very frugal. I wrote to accept impulsivity and to live your truths. Which is, so this is a catch-all, and this can be a good thing and a bad thing. I've been trying to just do the thing this week. I constantly question myself, like, should I do the thing being pretty much anything? Should I send that text? Should I get that meal? Should I stay in bed? Should I cancel that plan? Like, should I do this and that? And this week, without even knowing it, I didn't set up this experiment. This is me thinking about what I've been doing. I've just done the thing. If I'm ever questioning, like, oh, should I do this? Then I just do it, like, without thinking about it. And I'm still here. So
you've made it this far.
I've made it this far. So
7 days.
I think it's all right. Yeah. I felt really bad about canceling some plans earlier in the week, but I was just, like I said, having a really rotten week. But I just did it, and I felt so much better afterwards. I did the thing that I've wanted to do all semester, but haven't done until a few days ago, which was cut back on my hours at work.
Oh my gosh.
Which was a huge thing for me. Like, since freshman year, I've worked at C&D like 9 or 10 hours a week every week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's crazy. So, and it makes me feel really good about myself, and it like gets me up and moving in the morning, and I make money. But recently, it's just been terrible because it used to be easier because I always had things to do and I was constantly working the whole time. But now I kind of have some free time at work, and it makes me feel like, why am I here? I could be sleeping or studying. And it also
Are you allowed to do homework at work?
No, that's the thing. It's not like one of those jobs at a desk in like Sadov or something where you can just kind of sit and do homework. I'm always doing something else. I'm like actually working for them. So I'm trying to cut back from 9 to 6 hours, which will hopefully increase my sleep numbers so I can get out of sleep debt. But yes, so I did that impulsive, selfish, air quotations decision, and I feel pretty good about it. So
Yay, being selfish.
Yay! It's okay. My exchange is unsurprisingly related to Hogwarts at Hamilton just a tiny bit because it was awesome. And it's bled into a lot of my life now. So the other day, we have an e-board group me. And the other day, one of our e-board members, we were just like having a conversation in the group me, and one of them was like, oh, Rachel, I was talking to someone the other day about how great you were, and they described you as a mom, but like a cool mom. And I went, yes! Like, that's everything I want to be. I am the mom figure, and I love that, but also, like, for me to be a cool mom...
It's so much better.
It's so much better. Like, I'm not like other moms. I'm a cool mom. A la Amy Poehler in Mean Girls. But, so, one of my kids, JoJo, said that, apparently. So, JoJo, if this is true, and it was you, shout out to you. I love you, my beautiful daughter. But this got me thinking about... I don't know if it's like a meme thing, but you know that character question going around that's like, who are you in a family? Are you like the mom figure? Are you like the lax dad figure? Are you like the chill uncle or the weird aunt, the crazy aunt or the grandma? Like, who are you? So I'm definitely the mom figure. I don't know. Have you thought about this at all?
I have thought about this before. I actually wonder if I'm a combination of the uncle and the aunt. I say aunt, not aunt. Because I think I'm chill, but I'm also weird, and I wouldn't self-define as cool in any respect. So if I were to merge the uncle and the aunt, I'd be like the chill, weird aunt.
Oh, I feel that. I kind of want to merge mom and dad. Because,
for me.
Like...
Well, I could see that
for me.
Oh, for you.
Because,
okay.
like, I'm a mom figure, but I'm not, like, super dry. I'm very much like a dad in that I'm awkward and I make a lot of bad puns. And I'm just kind of, like, try to keep, like, the peace, and I'm just, like, a
what is the description of grandma?
I guess it's just self-explanatory. Like, you just kind of, like...
It's kind of boring.
You're not born in your generation, and you just are, like, wise beyond your years, and you just prefer, like, the finer things in life.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, so...
I don't know. There isn't one that I can say I explicitly don't resonate with.
You know, I didn't write this down here, but there's also the cousin, which is typically
there is the cousin,
like the weird crunchy one who like goes on hikes and like disappears for like weeks or months at a time. I think freshman year, I think Emily and I actually sorted out everyone in the room who they were, and I think Daphne was the dad, I was the mom, so we were the parents. We put down you as the cousin because you were like crunchy and alt because you were Portland. Because you were Portland, the city of you just were Portland.
I am that city.
You are Portland. Sophie was like the weird daughter. Cedar was like the crazy aunt.
These are great.
Yeah. So I love that character question. I love character questions. They're so fun.
Well, you know what this means? Listeners, please write us an email.
Oh my gosh.
Tell us which part of the family you are and which part of the family we are. We need to know. This is existential.
No, this will be interesting, actually. I mean, if you are a listener who's been listening for a few weeks now, and like all Kate and I do is talk about our life experiences, like you've got to have some idea of who we are.
Yeah.
Who do you think we are?
Comment on a Facebook post. Let us know.
Yeah, send us an email. This is really interesting. We'll share your opinions on air. So you have that incentive. What?
Look at that.
Crazy.
We'll give you a shout out. All right, Rachel. Well, my exchange leads directly from what I was talking about with spontaneity. This is actually really funny. I was like, I don't plan any meals anymore. And my exchange, all I've written is dining alone. So maybe my plan hasn't worked out as well for me. But I actually had a great dinner time conversation. A dinner time conversation with 3 people who I don't normally get dinner with. So that's a plus. But we were talking about your thoughts on eating alone, be it in the dining hall. Okay, for lots of things to think about. Where you would eat alone, / what meal it is, because these all vary a lot. So I would be so content eating breakfast or lunch alone, wherever. Dinner alone is hard. Dinner alone I can only justify if I'm not in a public place where other people are eating dinner. So I'm not sure if I could ever take myself out to a restaurant by myself for dinner. I might be able to take myself out to breakfast or lunch by myself at a restaurant. Dinner, hard to say. So we were having this really interesting discussion. Do you think that you could dine alone for dinner?
This is going to have to be restricted to on-campus spaces because I don't have a car, so I can't just go to Chipotle.
That's fair. I was saying hypothetically.
Yeah, so...
Oh, wait, Chipotle, different. I could dine alone at Chipotle. Okay. I'm talking about, like, a sit-down
like
restaurant.
Olive Garden?
Like Nola's.
Like take yourself out to Nola's.
Take yourself out to dinner. Take yourself out to a meal.
I mean, I'm very comfortable with eating alone. I do it quite frequently because I've been trying to not plan my meals as much, but off campus, I could definitely do breakfast, could definitely do lunch. Dinner, I think it would depend on the place. Like, if it was kind of romantic, like dim lights, like Nola's type thing, or I don't know if I could do that. That's kind of weird. But if it was like a Red Lobster, I'd be like, yeah, why not? I'll just have like 20 Cheddar Bay biscuits and leave.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's an interesting thing to think about, because I'd like to say that I have the independence and the confidence to be able to take myself out to dinner, but I feel so self-aware in an environment like that. I think in the dining hall, whenever I eat alone, I have to have a bunch of books spread out on the table so it looks like I'm only eating alone because I have a ton of work to do.
Right.
But I don't know if I could sit with just me and like my phone and eat in a dining hall alone.
Yeah, I eat in the dining hall alone more frequently than most people, or than many people, I think. But I also, if I'm eating dinner alone, I tend to go like right around 5. I go early so there's not a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I do that too.
I don't like going to eat no matter what if there's a lot of people around. Commons on a weekday at noon is my living nightmare.
Oh my God,
It is
too.
my nightmare. I get out of work at 11:30. I go in at 8:30 in the morning, which is awful, just so I can get out at 11:30, eat my lunch in like 20 minutes, and leave before the noon rush at Commons.
Perfect.
I am that afraid. But that sounds like an interesting conversation. Once I get a car, I'll let you know what I would actually do in those situations. All right, well, that's all that we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in again. So many things you can write to us about, or you could write to us and not answer any of those questions. Just tell us a story.
I'm expecting about 45 emails by next week. Probably more.
Yeah, anything less than that and we're going off the air. This is...
Save the show.
This is a threat.
Hashtag save liberal arts and crafts.
Hashtag save lack. But yes, thank you for tuning in once again. And without any further ado, we will turn you over to our wonderful sponsors.
This episode was sponsored by the piece of spinach in your teeth that no one tells you about.
This episode was unsurprisingly sponsored by Winona Ryder.
This episode was sponsored by homemade Halloween costumes, particularly Winona Ryder.
This episode was also sponsored by the first snowfall of the year.
And last but not least, this episode was sponsored by WHCL.